Hey gang, Nate Bear here, lead technical tactician for Monument Traders Alliance and trade of the day. And in today's video, I've got three names that I'm watching, and I want to go over the SPX just like we do every single week. So let's dive right in. I'm going to pull up my charts here, and what I want you to notice is I've got, just like we always do, we always start right here with the SPX. Now, this is a weekly chart, and what I want to bring to your attention is this trend line that we've been talking about, right? This trend line that's been in place since the beginning of 2022. It was breached and closed above a few weeks ago. We had a little bit of a pullback. And then the level that we've been talking about as we continue to move higher here is that 4,100 level. So if we go into a daily chart, what we discussed in the video watch list yesterday was a move up into 4,100 and then sort of a pullback with some chop. And then I think we will continue sort of moving higher, perhaps into say 4,300. That's what I'm kind of looking at. The move so far this week has sort of been, exactly that. We've gotten that. Well, it wasn't quite 4,100. What did we hit? 40. The high was 40.95. So pretty close, right? Within 5 points. That's 50 points on the SPY. If you trade, the smaller ETF as opposed to the SPX, which is bigger, but close enough, right? Close enough for government work, as they say. So we've had our move in at 4,100. We've now got this little bit of a pullback. I suspect we'll sort of chop around in here. We may pull back to this 21 EMA, which is the blue line right in through here. But I do think we'll sort of hold in through here. I don't see us going and making new lows. That said, anything can happen, and we do have some big earnings that I want to show you this week as well. But I think we're going to get a little chop, and I think we'll probably hang out through here, and I do think we'll probably start heading higher. Now, before we get into the new names, I do want to make you aware of really four things that are happening this week. You've got the Fed on Wednesday. You've got huge earnings this week with Amazon. Right here, you can see this little earnings bubble. Thursday, February 2nd, Amazon. What about with Google? Thursday, February 2nd, right? Right there. And then also Apple. So three of the biggest companies in the world all report earnings the same day, Thursday after the close. So what does that mean? Like, okay, so what? If I'm not trading Google, Amazon, or Apple, who the hell cares? Well, the reason you need to know is because these companies are massive and they have the ability to impact the market in a big way, one way or the other. Usually what will happen is Apple's sort of the leader. It's the biggest company in the world. But if Amazon, Google, and Apple all miss, guess what? Friday's going to be a tough day, especially for the NASDAQ. If they all beat, Friday's going to be a potentially great day for the NASDAQ. So it's just something that you want to be aware of these things that are coming up. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to say, well, I can't trade until after these earnings, but you do want to be aware of them so that you just aren't caught unaware. That's all. All right. So three names that I am watching. The first is Boeing, and this has been very strong. As you can see, one of the things that I'm noticing is that there are a lot of earnings dates coming up, right? So Boeing has already had earnings. I'll give you an example real quick before I go into Boeing. But here's one that I was looking at this morning in my scans. It's a really nice chart, right? Really nice chart. We've got our trend here. We've got this great pattern, and we've got, I'm not sure why the squeeze isn't coming up, but there it is. But we have a really nice squeeze. But the problem is earnings are today after the close. So there's not much I can do with that today. But if we get back into Boeing, they've already had earnings, and Boeing has been really strong, right? Really nice trend. And check this out. If we look at that pattern, what we'll notice is it's got everything we're looking for. So we've got our pattern. We've got our trend higher here. We've got our pattern. And we've got our squeeze. And earnings are in the past, so it's not something that we have to worry about. So if I look at Boeing, if we pull over the options chain, check out Boeing. It's a 195-minute chart, which means it could play out over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I don't want to do anything that expires like Friday. And for me, I prefer, if possible, to stick to sort of the monthly options. They have better volume, better liquidity. So for me in Boeing, I would come out here to this monthly series, the February 17th, 23 series. And I would probably look to pick up, you could go with either the 210s, which are slightly out of the money. They're 550 by 590, or the in the money 205s. And I personally prefer the in the money 205 calls for the monthly, February monthly expiration series in Boeing, playing that 195-minute chart. Again, what I'd like to do here, as we always do, is I don't want to buy it near the highs. I would like to see a pullback. And you notice how Boeing has sort of held this level right through here, which is around 205. So if Boeing comes into 205, maybe on a little weakness Thursday or Friday, then I would love to pick up some of those February monthly calls and look for Boeing to continue on its trend, continue on its current journey, and make new highs for this move, a break over, say, 215, and a move up to perhaps, say, 220 or so. So that is Boeing. The next chart that I want to look at is actually another one from the weekly watch list, and that is Chewie, C-H-W-Y, Chewie. I personally use Chewie. I love having my pet food delivered. I've got 4 dogs, so you can imagine it's a lot to to keep up with, and it's nice to just be able to set it and sort of forget it, right? So if you look at this daily chart on Chewie, you may look at this and say, well, okay, what's going on here? I don't really see anything. And you'd be right. The Chewie setup that I'm looking at is actually this reversal. And you may say, well, this is trending down, so are you playing it in a bearish way? This is a reversal setup. So this is one of the instances that do happen. And I'm seeing actually a lot of charts like this where they have had a big move down in 2022, and now they've put in these really nice bases, and they're starting to work into this wedge pattern in a base. So if we look at this, you've all probably heard of this pattern, but it's like a reverse head and shoulders where you've got a left shoulder, a head, a right shoulder, and this is called the neckline. And what happens is if and when this neckline breaks, you tend to get a nice pop higher. So Chewie has high short float. It's got a nice reversal pattern, and it's got a nice squeeze, right? These red dots down on the weekly chart. So what I'm looking for in Chewie is a long based off of this reversal pattern. Where would I like to get long? Well, the same thing applies in this case as it does with Boeing. I don't want to buy it right here at resistance. I don't want to buy right at the trend line, but I'd love to buy a move down into this moving average. Say the 21 EMA on the weekly chart looks great. So that's around $40 to $41 here in Chewie. And what you want to do, or what I like to do, is when I'm playing a weekly chart, is I like to give myself plenty of time. So I'll just look forward in the chart and say, okay, well, when are their next earnings? And if it's more than a month away, it's like perfect. I've got a weekly chart that's going to take some time to develop, and I've got a potential catalyst sitting out there that I can use to set up my options trade. So if we look at that right here, we see that Chewie has earnings on Tuesday, March 28th. Perfect. Today's the 31st, so that's perfect. That's 2 months away. And if we go over and take a look at the options for Chewie, C-H-W-Y, keeping in mind that the earnings are at the end of March 28th, I can go out here into this. You could do one of two things. You could buy the March series, but then you're going to have the volatility that's coming down, or you can buy the April series, which will include that earnings date. What that does is it keeps the IV, the implied volatility, the premium in the option, because the earnings date is sitting out there. There's a known catalyst, a known volatility event that options series includes and has to account for. So if Chewie sort of drifts sideways for 2 weeks, guess what? The IV, the implied volatility, the premium in those options stays elevated because there is a known catalyst. Anyway, we can get more into that in a future video. But for me personally, I would come in here, I would pick up these April 21st, 2023. This is an instance where it's sort of okay to do a little out of the money. And I would probably go with these $45 calls. $45 calls expiring April 21st, 2023, playing the weekly chart in Chewie. And I would be looking to pick it up on a move back to this 21 EMA on the weekly chart again, which is around $41. Okay. So those are the two sort of, I would say, typical, more responsible plays. There is another one that I'm looking at, and I have to warn you, a caveat emptor, right? Buyer beware. This is a crap company. It's a crap chart, but it's one of those, and we were talking about it yesterday, some of these meme stocks. And this is a name, RIOT, Riot. They have high short float. They've got a really, really nice pattern here. This thing kind of moves a little bit with Bitcoin. And if you follow Bitcoin a lot, Bitcoin has been having a decent move as of late, right? If that sort of continues, then I do think Riot has the potential to break out of this pattern. And I'm not looking for a massive move, but I'm looking for a bit of a short squeeze. So let's break this down, right? We've got our flag, we've got our really nice pattern here, and we've got our squeeze. Now this is a 195-minute chart, so I don't need to go out a month or 2 months. We can check on the earnings date for Riot, like we always do, and it looks like they are not out until middle of March. So I'm not going to be in the trade that long. This is something that I'd like to get in like today or tomorrow and be out by the end of the week, kind of a thing, or early next week at the latest. But again, buyer beware. This is not a stable name or a stable company. It is one that is subject to day traders and subject to a lot of like intraday volatility. But something that I might want to do in Riot is come out, like I said, into maybe next week, go to those February 10th options and just pick up. I mean, they're really cheap, right? And pick up like these $6 calls or these $5.50 calls and see if we can get that move. See if we can get that break here on the 195-minute chart. I'll show it to you again. Up and over this level, which is around $6.50. And see if we can get that move up into $7, $8, $9, or $10. Here's a recent example. And one of the reasons I'm sort of looking at this name is CVNA. And this is another company that's had a lot of difficulty lately. But check this out. Very similar situation where you had this move higher, right? Move higher, this little pattern here, 195-minute squeeze, and then boom, big short squeeze. Big short squeeze. That's kind of what I'm looking for in, or potentially to happen in Riot. But let me, again, I want to be very clear on this. This isn't something that you get into at $6 and you hold it down to 5 and then 4 and then 3. No, you get in at 6, you stop at 575, something like that. You don't want to, you don't want to let it run away to the downside. So it's just an interesting name and a setup that I am watching. All right. So anyway, that's what I've got for this week. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you guys are off to a great start this week. Keep in mind the big volatility, the potential for big volatility this week with the FOMC and those 3 earnings dates on 3 earnings on Thursday afternoon, Apple, Google, and Amazon. All right. So anyway, if you like this content, and you want to see more, be sure to like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. And also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything you'd like to talk about, or anything you'd like to see me cover in a future video, drop me a comment down below and I will get back to you. All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.